I agree with you.
You ready? Ready, Sally? It's 5:15. We'll call this regular meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody that's in the audience this evening. Would you please stand and recite the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving to number 2. Gail, would you like to read the norms tonight, please? Okay.
It's my grand. Yeah, yell Mike, everyone. The board developed norms are: all perspectives will be voiced and heard. The board will act as stewards of tax dollars. Meetings will be efficient. All board members will maintain a professional decorum. Decisions will be based on the board's strategic plan, its mission, and what's best for students. And all perspectives will be voiced and heard.
Thank you, Gail. We have no public communications. Is there any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, moving on. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Brent and seconded by Gail. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into old business, is there a motion to approve the high school wrestling room, name after Coach Charbonaro?
I'll move that.
Gail moves, seconded by Terry. Any discussion on it? Any discussion on it? Bob?
How is it going to be recognized? Is there going to be naming or in the room, or I'm just curious about that?
Rob, yeah.
Originally, when Mr. Schlager came and suggested this, he had suggested that the individuals behind this request would put a placard up, and that we had suggested to Mr. Schlager that he work with Mr. Roltzen to include the family, Wes Charbonneau's family. I know they're in Devil's Lake right now, and get them down so they can be honoring Wes with the naming.
Heidi?
I have not heard any feedback on this at all. I don't know if anybody else has, or one way or another. I've just myself have not heard anything, which I think is fine too. I'm just wondering if anyone has heard anything.
I did have 3 people approach me in the last couple of months since it became public knowledge, saying that they thought it was a great idea, people that knew him.
I haven't heard any adverse thing. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to B, we have recognition of Terry Anderson and Gail Martin for years of service on the Jamestown School Board. Would you like to come forward? And
Come on, Terry, it's our turn. For our time on the board.
just read it out loud.
I get it. The sentence is over.
Okay, this says, Terry Anderson, in appreciation of 4 years of service and dedication as a member of the Jamestown Public School Board of Education. And I'm sure Gail says the same thing, except for Gail has had 12 years. So we appreciate their 12 and 4 years of service. Thank you.
Half of my life. Oh, wait.
I just turned the video off first.
Put on your thin lens.
Nice summer buds, right? Without the flash, right? That was really nice. Just
Maybe do one more.
I'm glad you guys got the memo about the stripes and the blue.
Yeah. Color coordinated.
All right, good.
It's our prison attire.
Okay. Getting out of jail free, right?
Here,
Thank you.
you might want some directions or something.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
come forward.
Yep. Now you guys.
We can have the new board members come forward. Got Jennifer Schmidt and Steve Van Camp, Belkamp? I think your car is still running, Gail, so. Yep. So Diana, if you want to go right over there.
Is that it? No more hugs? Nothing? Is it?
Nope.
You're waving,
Gail.
See you, Terry. Okay, moving on, we have the organization of the board for the 2016-17 school year. We have to elect a president and vice president. Is there any nominations for president? Greg? Okay. Motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Yep. If there's no other nominations, is there a motion to cast a unanimous ballot? Bob moved, second by Brenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Is there a motion or nomination for vice president? Brenda? Okay. Greg? Motioned and seconded to nominate Heidi as vice president. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Heidi? Motion by Diane, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations. Moving to letter B, date, time, and place of regular meeting schedule. We need a motion for that? Or? Motion for that? Motion by Bob? Seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? No? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to set the school board compensation for the 2016-17 school year? And that is on your drive there.
There's no change.
It's the same as last year. Motion by Brenda, seconded by Heidi.
Just to note that it's not a change.
Yep, no change.
No change.
So, any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And moving to board committee appointments, I will talk to somebody, and if you guys want to talk to myself or Rob, and we'll get that together for the next meeting, and we'll go over that. So, moving to the regular agenda, nothing under recognition. Oh, Heidi?
I was just going to say, it might be a good idea for those of us that do serve on committees to let you know if we would like to.
To stay on there.
Or to not stay on as
Yeah,
well. So
correct.
then we know which ones are available as well.
So, okay. And we have nothing under correspondence, reports. Jim is not here yet, so we'll keep moving.
He's on his way from Devil's Lake still.
Okay.
Just doing a report up at Devil's Lake, so.
And Andrew is not here, I see. So strategic planning monitoring, Rob?
As you know, we do strategic plan progress monitoring periodically throughout the year, just to ensure that it doesn't become a document that sits in a desk drawer somewhere, that it actually does guide decisions that we make. I will not review it all of the progress monitoring, really, it's there to, if there's questions, but I just want to go through, for those less familiar with what the goals have been. The process started about 3.5 years ago, brought in around 80 community members, staff, administrators, board members to create these goals. We've talked about transitioning into a new strategic plan, which I think would be wise sometime in the next year. But I do believe that these goals are still pertinent. But I do believe that in the next year, it's probably something we should look to create a new strategic plan. But the goals that we have in place, revisit and clarify roles and responsibilities of the board and school administration and adjust board practice as appropriate. That's one goal, goal number one. Goal number two, revisit and update plans related to technology and school safety security. Goal three is develop and implement a facility and land master plan that addresses maintenance and upgrading facilities, examines present school configuration, identifies needs for possible new facilities, structures, and ensures that facilities and land are utilized effectively and efficiently. And I think as you go through those goals, you can see we've made significant strides in each of those goal areas, and I think it's important to revisit them and check that progress monitoring. But if you go through, if you're not familiar with this document, throughout the progress monitoring, it's listed as Progress Monitor Timeline and Report. And I've just listed the dates of when various activities have happened that correspond to the completion of that targeted goal. And again, I won't go through, it would take all night for us to go through everything, but goal four, revisit and revise its mission and vision statements and address social and cultural changes in Jamestown. Goal five, develop and implement a plan to assess and prioritize new staffing needs. And we'll actually have a few different, if we look at goal three and goal five, those are both goals that we'll be addressing today with some different actions that are out there in reports. School district goal six, develop and implement a plan to review and revise the system for supervising and evaluating school personnel. And goal seven, develop and implement a plan to assess and prioritize new and existing programs and service needs. So are there questions on any of the updates that have been made to the progress monitoring or questions about the process? I can go through more if you'd like.
Any questions for him? No? Moving to number four then, superintendent's report.
Later, as I said, Jim Paris from Consolidated Construction is going to be here to talk about that 5 to 10 year capital projects plan that we've been discussing for the last couple of meetings. I'm excited to have you hear it. I think it's an important step in the right direction in terms of what we are planning progressively, proactively I should say, well progressively too, but for our school district in terms of facility needs. I think it's an excellent step for the district to plan and not just react to facility needs, but to plan and thinking forward to ensure that we have all the needs, that we plan appropriately for all the needs that we're going to have in the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm excited to have you hear that. And I know Jim is excited to be here. As I said, he's on his way back from Devil's Lake, but he will be here probably in the next 15 to 20 minutes, and so we'll get his report when he comes. I did suggest, as I've talked before, a facility committee that meets regularly, quarterly, and has a responsibility that revolves around the 5 to 10 year plan. It's to, again, just like our strategic plan, the progress monitoring, making sure that that's not just another document that we pay for that sits in a desk drawer and we can check it off the list to say we've done it, something that guides our practice. And I think the process that I've outlined would certainly help that 5 to 10 year plan evolve into something, as the years progress and we start completing projects, something that we can evolve and continue to make useful after the first 5 years. But it will be a 3-member committee that's going to meet regularly. I think it's important. And as we talked before, that would be a meeting that we would structure to take place in all of our buildings. So the committee members would transition from, say, Louis L'Amour one meeting, Gustner the next, and we can partner this meeting with a tour of the facility so you can see, what the facility needs are, what's happened, what's working well in that building, what do we need to improve upon, and it really getting to know the infrastructure of the buildings. Sometimes when we look at buildings, we just look at the aesthetics, and we say, well, it looks like this building. This looks, the place I want to have my kids go, but there's more to a building than just what it looks like, and we want to make sure that we're addressing all of those things appropriately. I'll skip through some of this stuff, but board education and what I would like to do, and I want some feedback on this, but to restructure the agenda and separate in reports. We include everything in reports, and I think if we want to talk about modeling what we expect our teachers to do, what we expect our students to do, I think we should be changing some of that focus away from reports to board education, because that's really what it is. There's a lot of things that we do that are really us bringing people in or topics in to educate the board so you can make better decisions. And I would like to see us split up, and I gave you some examples. When I report, the activities director reports, a professional development report, those are regular, they're crucial to governance. Board education is different. When we had all the different teachers come and present on MTSS, if you had special topics that you needed to be aware of, open meeting laws, for example, other board needs that if we go to a board convention and there's some topics there that you want to get more information on, that's the place that it would go. Our ability to grow as a board, just like every other profession, just like every other group, the more you work and learn and practice, the better that you get. And I think if we can separate that, it really models what we're trying to do in school. And so if there's no aversion to that, I'd like to add that board education component to our agendas. And then we'll, like I said, some of that stuff we're already doing. But if you have special topics that you'd like to know a little bit more about, in terms of, it might be governance, it might be programmatic, it might be pedagogical. Depending on what those things are, I'll just create a schedule that's approved instruction, pedagogy instruction. And so I'll create a schedule, and then you'll look at that every year so we can plan ahead. So okay, in December we're going to be focused on this aspect of board education. And so it'll be something that we plan ahead for. Right now it just kind of reacts. We know that you need to have some information on MTSS, so we just put it on the agenda in reports. But I think what it really comes down to is education. So if there's no aversion to that, that's how I'll structure agendas for you moving forward. The enrollment study comes on the agenda later on. If there's questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer them, but you'll act on that later. And I did include also the facility survey. We had around 130 responses when we sent out our facility survey. And those results, and I put together a common themes from the comments that came up. And just to note, as I mentioned in the report, questions 7 and 11 were all open-ended questions. Though there wasn't a corresponding, on the PDF, it's just going to show a blank question. Well, that's because they're all open responses. So the trends, the comment themes are in that second document for question 7 and 11. But I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions, Rob? Oh, Heidi?
Just looking ahead in our schedule, we oftentimes have a fall retreat, and now that we have our new board, I was wondering if we're planning on that fall, and then maybe our plan for strategic planning could maybe be one of the agenda items for the fall retreat.
I'm glad you brought that up, Heidi, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about with the new board member orientation. One of the modules is finance. What Roger and I had talked, and we thought it would make sense if we did the financial module for all board members as part of just again, board education, re-education on the specifics of our budget, and take the deep dive into those issues, funding formulas, so you understand levies and all of our different revenue streams, and just take, like I said, a deeper dive into the budget. So that finance, that board retreat would happen. We kind of penciled out potentially August. And then that would be the focus is all in finance or any other areas that we need to talk about. So I think that's, at least that's the tentative plan that we've discussed so far. The other thing I wanted to bring up was in relation to marketing, the marketing class. In here, it was originally the recommendation to not hire another marketing teacher. And as of today, that has been shifted where that's potentially still something that Mr. Lynch is looking at, so I didn't want to misinform the board. I said in my report that we were going to potentially go a different direction. Right now, he's looking at marketing and finding another marketing instructor. So if he does bring forward that person, that would come before the board, just like any other hire, but I just didn't want to feel like I was misleading you because new information came today, so.
Any other questions, Rob? Hearing none.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Will we
Jennifer?
get a little bit more information on that survey that was given to the teachers? I mean, I read through it. I saw, a lot about their workspace and their facilities that they have. Where are you hoping to use that information?
Anytime you're looking at making potentially large facility changes, you want to make sure that you're talking with the people working in the buildings. So that's one step in how we're getting input from the people in the classrooms and how they can, how their space is impacting them. That's kind of the first step in getting teacher input.
Are you thinking that you'll do a broader one? This was really simple, very, very, very top. What do you think just generally? Are you thinking you might dial this down and get into some specifics, or are you hoping to have meetings to get that out of them? And then is that going to be a part of your new committee that you're wanting to start as well? Are you hoping to have teachers there with the school board? I don't know what your vision is.
Well, the next step would be getting you can't have every teacher involved but we had talked about a representative team of people that could, we're right now just trying to target what common themes are, what common needs are, and expectations. And so, and one of the questions we had in there is how do you want it, and how would we best gather your input? And so based on that, we want to do that a greater, a deeper dive through representation.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions for him, Heidi, you got one?
You just reminded me of something I've been reading in the last couple weeks. There's been a few articles on maker spaces, and I didn't know is that something that is being talked, I'm not at the teacher level. Is that something at the teacher level that's being discussed or an interest in? And then I've seen where some schools are partnering with like industry to help kind of make it all flow.
Yeah, within the last year to 18 months, we've had quite a few discussions about maker spaces and implementing a maker space and the flexible learning spaces that we talked about in the last referendum. Maker spaces fit into flexible learning spaces, so that's certainly something that we would have an interest in exploring a little bit more.
Okay. Moving on to D, we have board education there, and I think that's going to be a good idea to have that separated from other reports and stuff, so we know what is board education and so on. So, going into new business, we have nothing under activities, buildings or grounds or curriculum. Under bank accounts, is there a motion to approve the checking and savings accounts at the establishments listed there? Motion by Mindy, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none.
For the public, do you want to say what they are?
For the general fund, we have Wells Fargo. Special reserve fund is Wells Fargo. The building fund is Wells Fargo Bank. The debt service fund is Wells Fargo. The school food service is U.S. Bank. School activities at Wells Fargo Bank. Health insurance fund is at Wells Fargo Bank. James Valley Career and Technological Center is at U.S. Bank. And the building fund it's not showing on my, Wells Fargo. Any other discussion on them? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to the financials, motion to approve. Motion by Greg. Seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to B, general fund balance. Sally?
Typically, month by month, I give this to you just for your information, and since it's the end, reporting at the end of our fiscal year, I just want to make a couple comments. You can see by the report, our ending fund balance as of June 30th, 2016 is $3,383,684.49. Okay, that is 12% of the general fund expenditures, and that's something that I think Mr. Leck and Roger will bring out. We'll talk about that more in the board retreat. Where do you want that percentage to be? When I brought the budget to you last July, the projected deficit was about $685,000, and so we ended with a little bit better than that. We ended with a $465,000 deficit. So, if there's any questions, that's all I have for this report.
Any questions for Sally? As far as, I have one question. As far as the optimum balance in there, is there any guidelines of a specific percent of balance that should be?
I would say 10 to 14%. You would not want to go below 10%.
Okay. Yeah, Bob?
Just a comment, I think 10% is that's pretty thin. You know, I don't think could you operate at 10%? You know, yes, you could, but that would be a number I wouldn't feel really comfortable with. Somewhere in that, 10 to 15, stay somewhere in the middle of that, the 12 to 14% I think would be optimum of where you would want to be at in a larger district. Now in a smaller district, that percentage is going to want to be higher. But just economy of scale, I think that the 12 to 14% range would be a good spot to be in for us.
Okay. Any other questions for Sally on the general fund? Moving to C, the budgets draft.
In your Google Drive, I gave you the fund balance or the draft budgets for all the funds. I also, for all of you on the board and also the new ones, I did an executive summary of budgets just to give you a brief overview of each category. I won't read those line by line. I'll just kind of highlight some of the items. In the salaries, they reflect just a $285,000 increase, and I think there's a couple things that you need to be aware of. Obviously, with the negotiations, the early retirement, which was a $200,000 budgeted item, this was the last year for that, so in the 2016-17 budget, that is no longer a budget line item. And then the other decrease is just changes in the master agreement and retirements. So quite a significant difference, but just so you're aware of that difference in there. The benefits are your mandatory taxes and retirement. So that's just a percentage of your salaries. The new item that the board approved last month was to go with an employee assistance plan. So that was a $9,000 addition to the benefits for the district. And I'll reiterate what Greg Allen said, it's a good thing to do. And then the 300 categories of the budget are those professional and technical services. Mainly those are, a large portion of that is our cooperative agreement with James River and hiring that staff, the school psych directors, that type of thing. And also our health nursing. And then our 400 categories is our water, garbage, and maintenance, and our snow removal, okay? And the 500 categories is, the 500 category is where some other things, but that's our transportation. And this is the first year that we are doing our new agreement with Dietrich's. Before we were billed per mile with the fuel escalation clause. And this year we have gone to a per bus. So we will see what our transportation, we have estimates and stuff, so we'll see how that goes. It's the first year for that new billing. So we're being billed a little bit differently. So it can work efficiently. There's can be pros and cons to it, so we'll work through that. The 600 categories is mainly our supply items for the teachers. And 700 categories is our technology devices. And then 800 is registration and conferences. And then our 900 is other use of funds. And that's where we transfer funds. One of the things that we are doing this year is in the budget, I'll highlight the budget, but I'm bringing a balanced budget. We retired our high school debt, and throughout the course of time, with that, people pay back taxes that were owed in the past, and values increase. So it's common when you close out a debt that there is leftover funds. And by century code, within 2 years of that happening, you are required to transfer the funds to general fund. So when we review the general fund budget, you will see that it's balanced by transferring about $290,000 from that debt service over to general fund. So it's one-time money, but it helps us out. Okay, that's a highlight. The general fund consists of, the revenue consists of local dollars, which is your mill tax levy. And then the county, which we recently just started getting, was coal money. And that's, what the coal money is
It's a conversion tax?
yes, the coal conversion from the Great River Energy. So through the county, we get about $12,000. That's what we got last year, a little over $12,000. And then our state, obviously, is our per student. And then our federal is our Title I, our federal programs, Title II, IDEA B. Okay? So you can see on the general fund budget, each total revenue. I don't know if you want me to read them, but I bring to you a balanced general fund budget, like I said, with the transferring of those funds from the debt service. Okay? Any questions on the general fund?
Diane?
I know you explained how the benefit number went up from last year, but the increase in salaries of $285,000, is that high this year, or is that about average?
I'd say that's lower because the year before comparing was 680,000. Yeah.
Any other questions? Rob, you have a comment?
Just a comment, as a board, we've been working a long time, 4 years, 4 budget cycles to have a balanced budget. So we're excited about, I think the way that the board has balanced the budget, looking over time to make smart decisions, recognizing that we had an interim balance, like I said, being in that 12 to 14% range is right where we want to be. So I think it was wise moves by the board to take this approach rather than overreacting to a large number. And I think the board was wise to take a slower approach and balance the budget by making the smart, correct decisions over time. So I'm happy to see, a balanced budget there.
Greg?
We were concerned about the healthcare costs going up because we had to open it up to the part-time people, but apparently that has not been a significant amount.
The fund is doing very well. The fund is doing very well. As we've talked before, our health insurance committee, which is the voting members are all teachers and one administrator. Diane serves on that committee. Bob serves on that committee. Sally and I serve as ex officio also. They do a great job. They really do an excellent job of managing the fund, watching revenue and expenses. They do an excellent job, and they continue to do an excellent job. And they are not recommending. I missed last meeting because I was out, but they are not recommending rate changes. Correct? So they're doing a great job.
Bob, you had a comment, or?
I wanted to point out, a few years ago, we had a budget of an interim fund of about $6 million. I don't think it ever quite hit $6 million, right, Sally? But we were close to that. And now it's down significantly, and we're balancing the budget this year based on one-time dollars that are available, and as Mr. Leck mentioned, we're probably at the point where we don't want to have future deficits. So congratulations to Rob and Sally for bringing the balanced budget, but we still have some more work to do, and we have to continue to watch the line on that, so that in the near future we don't have more troubles. And certainly the dollars from the state aren't going to be, the news you hear from there isn't very positive. So good luck to you guys.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Sally, or? Okay,
You guys have to listen to me just for a little while.
keep going.
The next budget is a special reserve budget, which the board has not levied, and so it's just kind of sitting there as a savings account. Later on in the agenda, you will, it requires a resolution by the board. The board, by century code, if they wanted to, could transfer up to 50% of the balance of the special reserve. And so you see this budget, and that's what that is. If the board chose to transfer, it's $198,595, the special reserve budget, okay? The next budget is the building fund. That's where our summer projects and any large maintenance items come from, okay? So you can see, look at that, and that's, Mr. Leck brought to you earlier, I don't remember when it was, May, some of the summer projects and the pool pack. So the $920,000 expenditures reflect that. Our roof repairs, our summer projects, okay? On the top half is showing the 10 mills of building fund and also special assessments. As we look at the mill levies, we're reducing that mill levies for special assessments. We were doing 3 and we were reducing it down to 1. We had been running a negative balance. You need to balance out your specials with the amount of mill levy that you do. And we are at excess, so we are proposing to reduce that mill levy by 2 and go down to 1. So that's your revenue for the building fund and special reserve, and then, like I said, those expenditures.
Rob?
And just to talk about the special assessments too, that's a fluid area. As things change with Fifth by the Two Rivers Activity Center, that's going to be assessed. And so, we've been in flux from 1 mill to 3 mills in my time here. And so it's 1 mill now because that's what we need. We don't need more than that. We don't have a negative balance like we did. We're not trying to play catch up. But now we're at 1, which is where we should be next year. That could be back to 2 or 3 depending on how those specials turn out. So just so you're aware of that too, we go based on what we need.
Sally?
The debt service budget, which just consists of funds transferring over from the building fund for the green space, and then the general fund for the energy savings loan that we have, okay? That's the only thing left in the debt since we paid off the high school, okay? And you will see the expenditures are higher than the revenue. That's the amount that I'm transferring over from the debt service to the general fund to bring that balanced budget, okay? Any questions? The food service budget, Shelley does a great job of managing the food service and keeping things in line. Sometimes she does a great job. But these are her projected revenues because she tracks all the free and reduced money we get, the money that we get from the state, and then she works with me on salaries and benefits. So those are the employee salary and benefits and food costs for the food service department. You will see that the revenue, she does have a carryover, so you can see the expenditures are higher than the revenue, but she does hold a reserve. So she is okay for the following fiscal year. And I know the activities budget, the general fund is our largest budget, but I think the hardest budget is the athletic budget. But these budgets include all the athletics, all the activities, all the revolving accounts. And it also includes money budgeted in the general fund that we transfer over to support these. So I think we can So that's our estimated budget. I still need to work with Mr. Rolson, so these are draft budgets, and we will bring to you, Mr. Leck has a date set, I believe, on the agenda for the mill levy and final drafts, or final budgets. And the health insurance. We did end, and I think Mr. Toso could talk more about this, but we did end the year. When we started out last year, we had no idea. You know, we could have added 70 people to the health insurance, 70-some people, because of the ACA law, bringing those pair on. So we had no idea where we would be at. We added about 30 people, and we also changed our minimum reserve from 6 months to 4 months. It went very well. We went, we have a $500,000 reserve. So we had a great year. So the committee chose to keep our health insurance plan the same and to not raise the premiums. So, yeah, it's good. So the budget reflects those revenues and estimated expenditures. So we'll see what kind of year we have.
Bob, do you have a question?
I don't want to have to change my name to Mike. So thank you, Sally. Just to point out, the reason we had a great year was because, thankfully, we didn't have a lot of usage, because that's what drives the budget, is how much staff uses the health insurance plan, and that's fluctuates. You just never know what's going to happen. So yeah, we did have a good year. We were really concerned, as Greg mentioned, with the adding of new staff, but that seems to have worked out well, and let's just keep hoping that we keep having good years and no one gets sick, because health insurance is one of those things, you want to have it, but you never want to use it. So let's keep hoping that happens.
Yeah, like Bob said, we could be sitting here next year with a $300,000 deficit, because you just don't know, so.
Diane, you got?
Yeah, my new place is hard for you to see, but I just wanted to reiterate what Bob said. Since I've been on the committee, they have had a run of good years. So it goes up and down, but it seems like we've done pretty well the last 5 years. And, you know, not to say the other shoe would drop, but hopefully it'll continue that way.
Okay, and then the Career Tech Center, Mr. Lynch pulls this together. He receives dollars from the state and his salary and benefits. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions for Sally on the? None? Okay. Moving on to letter D. Is there?
Approve the draft.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the draft budget? Motion by Heidi, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter D, is there a motion to approve the special reserve fund resolution? Motion by Mindy, seconded by Bob. Any discussion?
I would like someone to read this and,
Okay.
and do a roll call vote if that's possible.
Yep. Mindy, would you like to read it, or?
The Jamestown Public School Board shall grant the district administrator authority to transfer up to 50% of the funds from the Special Reserve Fund to the General Fund as specified in the North Dakota Century Code 57-19-11. These funds shall be used in accordance with the standards outlined in the North Dakota Century Code 57-19-11.
Any other discussion? Sally, would you call roll?
Robert.
No, it's me.
Robert Toso? Yes. Roger Hout?
Yes.
Mindy Schmitz?
Yes.
Brenda Remick?
Yes.
Heidi Larson?
Yes.
Greg Allen?
Yes.
Steve Belkamp?
Yes.
Diane Hansen?
Yes.
And Jennifer Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Motion carried. Moving to letter E, is there a motion to approve the certificate of levy? Then if you'd want to read that also. Someone have it on their screen? Okay, Jennifer moves. Do you have it on your screen to read it? Or?
I do.
Okay.
Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of the Jamestown Public School District Number 1 of the City of Jamestown, North Dakota, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017, and the business manager of this board is hereby instructed to propose the same to the county auditor, Stutzman City, North Dakota, as approved by statute. Tax levy number 1, general levy, 65 mills, $4,063,754.24. Number 2, building levy, 10 mills, $625,210. Number 3, high school tuition levy, 7 mills, $437,647. Number 4, miscellaneous mill levy, 12 mills, $750,252. Number 5, special assessment, 1 mill, $62,521. Fund budgets, number 1, general fund, $28,548,113.37. Number 2, special reserve fund, $198,595. Number 3, building fund, $920,174.50. Debt service fund, $612,176.90. Number 5, food service fund, $1,496,118.50. Number 6, school activity fund, $1,002,000. Number 7, health insurance fund, $3,890,000. Number 8, James Valley Career Technology Center, $1,380,085.
That's a form of motion, Jennifer, then you move.
I
Okay,
move.
is there a second? Seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? Hearing none? Oh, sorry about that, Greg. Greg?
Yeah, I just had a question. No, our maximum mill levy is 70. Could you just maybe explain the difference between that and these mills here?
I'm not sure I understood your question.
The maximum, the maximum we can levy, and then we have the additional. I just think people maybe need to understand that there are some that are separate.
So technically speaking, for the general fund, you have you have a 60 mil cap, and then you have 10 mills in what's called the discretionary levy, board levy. Most people just say general fund levy is at 70. So there's 5 mills different between what we're proposing to levy and what the cap would be. The building fund is at 10. That's where we can be at. 7 mills for tuition levy, we determine that based on need. Miscellaneous levy, you can be at 12, and that's where we are at. Special assessments as needed, as I talked about before, and right now we're looking at 1. So if you're looking for growth, or potentially where people need to understand is 65 mills could potentially become 70. That's what we could grow. We are limited by the 12% growth cap, so that means in dollars, you can increase no more than 12% in revenue in any year. So whatever that would generate in terms of a mill levy, that's where you have. Did that answer your question, Greg, or do you want me to go deeper? Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Sally, roll call?
Brenda Remick.
Yes.
Diane Hansen.
Yes.
Robert Toso.
Yes.
Mindy Schmidt.
Yes.
Jennifer Schmidt.
Yes.
Roger Hout.
Yes.
Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Greg Allen.
Yes.
And Steve Belkamp.
Motion carries. Moving to letter F, we have to set the September 19th at 6 p.m. as far as the date of the mill levy hearing. Motion by Brenda, seconded by Greg. Any discussion on it? Rob?
Just comment, as you remember, this hearing is a required hearing that we have if we generate 1 penny more than what we than we requested in revenue in the past. We have always said in Jamestown that we would have this hearing regardless, which is what we did last year. We had this hearing whether we were required to have it or not. It just makes sense to have it. We'll talk a little bit more in the finance retreat about how we come up with that percentage and what the rules are, because it's a little convoluted. What we put in the paper in terms of a percent is not what people think that it is. It's very confusing. So we'll have to educate you on what that number means. And essentially it's calculating those dollars into a comparable mill levy percentage increase. So it's a little bit different than what most people think of when they see a percentage. And so we'll help to educate you on what that means. But the bottom line, you have to have the hearing if you levy a penny more than what you levied in the previous year. So that's the history, a little bit behind that. Then letters go out. We are required to post a percentage in the paper of what our zero mill increase percentage is. We send out, like I said, we send out letters to, and that's where the confusion comes, because that percentage is not an increase to people's property taxes, and which is typically what somebody looks at when they say you're having a mill levy hearing to discuss an increase of 5%. Well, people think 5% means my taxes are going to go up 5%, and it's not. It's the calculation for how much the mill increased.
Heidi?
I did get, when those letters went out, was it last year or the year before, I did get quite a few phone calls from the public, which was good, just kind of for an explanation. And so for the public, if you get these letters in the mail and the percentage seems like a lot, it's probably not what it sounds like in the letter. It is just a percent of the mill, not an overall percentage of what you're paying in your taxes.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. If we want to stop now and have Jim come forward with his presentation and
Thank you. It's good to see everybody. Can you hear me? Turn that on. We know how. Sorry, should have brought my glasses. It is on. All right, get close, right? Get close?
There
Can
you
hear
go.
me?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Well, and thank you for the flexibility and the time I joined you tonight. We did have a commitment that I just couldn't change this afternoon, so thank you for that. It's a pleasure to see you again. I'm going to keep this brief because I understand the board does have the detail, but I would like to at least give you an executive summary of what we're commissioned to do, and that is to provide a capital maintenance plan for the Jamestown Public Schools, which basically provides you as leaders, as administrators, the condition and expected useful life of the various systems that make up your facilities. The goal behind it is to be able to prioritize and to manage within the available funding that you have. And it is in sync with the fiscal year budgets, at least this fiscal year's budget, and also provides some recommendations for next fiscal year 17 and 18, within the $600,000 or so in budget that you have available. This report does not include educational needs or all building code recommendations that you may have heard from your engineering firm a year or two ago, DLR Group. What you'll get from engineering firms is you will get recommendations to bring all your buildings up to current codes. And yet, as you know, that's often not something that's achievable or fundable within your current funding structure. So what you get from us is something that we truly try to make, I'll say, work within your available funding. And to your credit, you've done a nice job of setting aside I understand, about $600,000 per year, which had you been able to keep up over the years, had you been able to do that for past history, should be fine. In fact, the national organizations that we've subscribed to, the specific example I put in your agenda here is BOMA, the Building Owners and Managers Association, will recommend a sustained budget of 80 to 90 cents per square foot per year, which if you do the math on your 632,000 square feet, is very close to that $600,000 that you've set aside. So a very credible budget, a very justifiable budget. But the reality is, as you'll see in a minute, unfortunately, because the district has not been able to keep up and not been able to provide that preventive maintenance, you do have some things coming at you here that I think, I hope this report will help you manage. I'll just put it that way. It's not immediate. It's not, this report is, I think, still very helpful, very timely, but there are some things coming at you that we wanted to get the school board thinking about tonight. And then finally, we do want to suggest some next steps as the facility planning unfolds here, as you may want to consider, because remember, this is purely, or nearly purely, based on the condition and expected maintenance needs of your facility. This does not address educational needs, and of course, we're all in the business of providing education, right? So I certainly would recommend that you, as you consider your priorities, that you consider your educational needs as part of that. Does that make sense? So if I could then just continue, a couple of things that are in your packet, I believe, that this 10-year facilities maintenance plan, it's a spreadsheet. And basically what this does is this provides you by year what the recommendations are by the 7 schedules, we call them, or categories of work that school districts typically deal with. The first being asbestos, second being building repairs, the third being sites or everything outside your building footprint, roofs, handicap accessibility, security and safety, and equipment. And what jumps out at me on this report as I try to put myself in your chair as a board member tonight is a couple things. First of all, if we look at a 10-year average of about $2.1 million, that's something that, of course, does exceed, the funding that you currently have in place. And when I drilled into that a little bit deeper, I look at building repairs at about $1.3 million average per year. And I also look at your roofs, which is about $559,000 average per year. The building repairs, by the way, are a little bit more manageable, I'd say, than the roofing is, because you can prioritize, you can continue. But again, a lot of those building repairs can be taken care of when you revisit and evaluate your educational needs. You can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will, when you get your arms around or revisit your educational needs. The roofing, I think what I would recommend there is, as you have been able to, I think to a large extent, is to stay on top of that, continue to inspect and repair every summer, because as you know, a good roof will certainly prevent more costly future repairs. And it's when we get behind on our roofs that we really can run into trouble, right, with wet insulation, with leaks, et cetera. So our advice would be make sure you stay on top of that. And of course, evaluate those building repairs as part of every budget cycle. Dr. Leck?
If you just a comment too, what the board has is the executive summary and the narrative.
Okay.
So just so you know what you're referencing,
Okay,
what they
thank you.
have.
Okay.
And we can certainly get that Excel document also
Okay.
to them, but what they're looking at
I
is
see.
either the executive summary or the narrative, and you can find them on the agenda or in my report. So just so you
Okay.
know what to reference to.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. No, thank you. That's very helpful, actually. I want to make sure it's a good use of the board's time. The second thing I'm just going to reference briefly, even though you don't have it tonight, there's another document that is a spreadsheet also, and it's by building. And so what I take from this, again, in looking at this is at your level, I'll say, is that generally speaking, your buildings really are certainly worth continuing to invest in, right? You want to continue to make best use of what you have. I can tell you in other districts that we provide this service for, it's not uncommon for one of their buildings, the maintenance costs for their buildings to exceed 70 or 80% of the costs of new. And so that unfortunately, right, they have to make that decision generally to replace that building. I'm not seeing that here out of this data completely, but I am seeing, at least at the elementary level, my recommendation again is to study the needs at Lincoln, Louis L'Amour, Roosevelt, and Washington are kind of the big 4. Now, although the specific maintenance recommendations are in the 40% category, 40% of the expected cost of a new facility, which doesn't tell me they necessarily need to be replaced just from a maintenance standpoint. I think, again, what I would like to do is maybe revisit your educational needs and come back to you then with a more complete picture, which, again, may cause some different decision-making. But right now, again, overall, this data doesn't tell me that any of those buildings need to be replaced just from a maintenance standpoint. And I think that's a credit to the school board. That's a credit to the good work that you've done to make best use of what you have over all these years. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to just touch lightly on the executive summary, which I understand you do have. I'm not going to drill into it, but I do want to at least share with you the words that I took from this report, or that I think are key. If you look under Schedule 1, asbestos, number 1, again, you've done a great job. It does not pose a hazard. Okay, that's really the thing that jumps out at me there. Again, continue to maintain it, continue to prevent it from becoming friable, it just simply will not present a hazard. Schedule 2 building repairs, what I want to leave you with there is keep in mind that these are recommendations, things that we certainly would recommend you get in a scheduled maintenance list. And the issue will become more acute if and when you consider extensive renovations. When you get into extensive renovation, many of these building repairs will be required by current code. In other words, you have to comply with current code. So good to have this list, good for us to get our arms around it as you consider your educational needs. As far as sites go, no real comment. I thought that was self-explanatory. I think the theme of Schedule 4 roofs and roofing is quality. That's what I appreciate, or I guess what I would share with you is, to invest in a quality roof will give you sometimes double the service life of what maybe that cheapest roofing option may be for you. And so that's part of what we'll be glad to further study for you as these needs become more acute or more current, is what is that best option. Our advice generally is invest in quality, because when you look at that cost per year of maintaining a roof, your quality roofs will have a much lower cost per year because they last so much longer. That's kind of the basics. Schedule 5 ADA, I think the key language there is move toward further compliance. You've done a great job responding to the OCR report. That work is very close to being done. But the idea and what the law requires us to do is to move toward compliance. And I think this report will allow you to continue doing that. Security and safety, again, district, great job on that. This report provides some additional recommendations that we'd suggest be considered. And of course, there are some physical things that could be done as part of an educationally driven project that will continue to improve security and safety beyond just video systems and that type of thing. And then finally, equipment. I think the key words there is consider improvements to equipment as they reach the end of their life that will improve labor productivity, right? That's really what equipment does, even as simple as lawn mowing and snow removal, right? Look at improving labor productivity. It's our largest single expense, right, in a school district. Are there any questions on the executive summary or on the capital maintenance report in terms of what it tells us?
Greg? Now, I see you have these listed as schedules, but do you also go through and prioritize what you think are some of the first things we should really take a look at and take what steps from there?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. We do, and this report does reflect that. What we are able to do is sit down with Sally and your maintenance people, Jerome, and really go line by line and continue to refine and improve that. But this does reflect a prioritized list, both for your next 2 fiscal years and then beyond that all the way out to year 10.
Rob, you have a comment?
A comment to that. I showed you a sample a couple of months ago of what that's looked like in another place that Jim had shared with us. And my intention was to share that with our facilities committee that we've talked about, but I can certainly share that out, put it back in the drive, and so for those that are interested, but absolutely, Jim has been working with us and making sure that 5 to 10 year plan is broken down as we had talked before, year 1, year 2, years 3 and 4 together, year 5 through 10 as or 6 through 10. How does it work again? Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through 10.
6 through 10, yeah.
And so they're just and that's what I was talking about when I was in my report before, that we can evolve those things. And as the year goes on and our committee's working, okay, now we know what's been spent or what's been planned, what worked, what we needed to add, and now we're looking to the next years. Okay, year 2 is now shifting to year 1. What's coming off the board, what's going to shift into priorities. So I think Consolidated Construction has done a really good job for us in making sure that this is a functional plan that we can follow, and it's something I've really appreciated that Jim has worked very hard to do. I'll give you a great example of that is the schedule for equipment. That's not something that, as a district, we contracted with Consolidated Construction for. Tom Beck and Jim decided to just do that because it makes sense that we would look at equipment also. And so we're getting we're getting a lot of bang for our buck here, and we appreciate that, what Consolidated Construction has done. But it's done exactly what you've asked as a board, and that is to provide a functional plan for the next 5 to 10 years on how we're going to spend money on capital projects.
The 600,000 roughly that is budgeted, as you mentioned, it hadn't been budgeted before. This is, now it is being budgeted. That's a really good thing. In this 5 to 10 year plan, do you see that us being able to catch up or no?
I think my advice on that would be is I would revisit your educational needs and consider them, I'll say first, as part of an overall catch-up plan, put it that. So I think it would be difficult. I think it would be risky, that, again, when things reach the end of their life, take a boiler, right? A boiler breaks down, you call somebody in the middle of the night, right? And you're paying a lot for that emergency repair. And heaven forbid it doesn't happen in the middle of winter, right? Where you also have to bring in temporary heat or, again, heaven forbid, close school. I don't see that situation in Jamestown, but it's an illustration of what I'm talking about, and that what you'll hear from us is get ahead of it, prevent that big emergency from happening. So I do see some concerns, but I think we're catching it early enough where we can more fully answer your question once we revisit the educational needs, if that makes sense. Okay.
Rob?
Thank you.
Just a comment too with, just for clarification, we have levied 10 mills in the building fund for preventative maintenance in the past. We have a building fund that Sally had presented in the budget of around $1 million. So that's money that's been generated for preventative maintenance. I think what this helps us do is be less reactive to what's happening this summer that we need to work on, and become more of a plan that says, what are we going to need to do in the next 3 years to address maintenance long term? Reaction becomes obviously very short term thinking. We need to get this done right now. This helps us become long term thinkers in terms of facility needs. So we've levied that money before. I think we've done a good job in providing preventative maintenance on that short term, what we need right now. And it's addressing the long focus for facilities. And I think a lot of entities do it exactly as we have done. You react to what is the priority right now. And I think with aging facilities in our school district, we have to be long-term thinkers. We just have to be. And I think this plan helps us do that.
Sally?
Jim, correct me. When Tom was here, he does a great job. I think one example is we have a roofing company come in and evaluate the roofs. So we maintain the roofs. We keep them functioning. But there's no plan in place for a long term to replace that roof.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, what I didn't mention is Tom Beck, the consultant that we brought on board, who was a 30-year veteran of a school district in very similar size, and a man he's retired, but you never guess it. One of those guys. And so he just brings that wealth of experience and the ability to make best use of what we have. He really does. Very practical man. I mean, didn't you feel that? And and yet he's going to make that strong recommendation in the best interests of students, staff, and community. So I think there's a nice balance here with him.
Rob?
And one comment about Tom too, and Jim's not going to be up here and toot his own horn, but the service that you paid for, that you contracted for, did not include Tom either. That was something that Consolidated Construction decided for Jamestown, based on our needs, that Tom would be a good resource to help us create a plan. So that's something that on their dime they brought in Tom, and he was very helpful here for a couple of days working with our staff, and so we were very appreciative of Jim and Consolidated Construction's commitment to make sure that we get a good product, but they didn't have to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jim, or none? Okay, thanks for the
Thank you.
report.
Is there anything I could share some suggested next steps if we have time, or should I just take just a minute?
Okay.
Again, it's a process, right? And I touch on this idea of educational needs. I want to credit Dr. Leck and staff for what is, I thought, a tremendous response to some surveys earlier this spring before school let out. And I guess what we take from that is definitely continued desire to advance education here in Jamestown. And so we're in the process of sorting out those 130 responses and frankly, bringing them back to prioritization, right? And so that process we'd recommend be re-engaged here in August, September when the staff comes back, both with building principals and then also with the staff, and then ultimately to bring a recommendation back to the leadership team and the school board in terms of prioritized educational needs. So that's kind of a staff driven by our educational experts. The second step that we'd suggest you consider is listening to the community. And I think if there's, and you have been, you brought a educationally driven project to the community last year. You've been listening. We've heard from you and from others what you heard from them. We have actually developed a very open process we call focus groups that asks the community 6 open-ended questions about the future of the school district as they see it. We talk about and reach a common understanding of this idea of 21st century learning. How does it respond to all the changes in our lives, right, since we all went to school? And so we would offer that, too, as a next step in the process and really reach out to the community, listen, hear what their priorities are, and then bring back that report to the school board, too, here early this fall. So there's a couple suggested steps we'd ask you to consider.
Okay. Anything else from Jim, or no? Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Moving back into the finance, there is a motion to approve the void outstanding checks. Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Their motion to approve the RSP enrollment study agreement. Motion by Mindy, seconded by Bob. Any discussion on that? Rob, you want to? Bob?
I was just going to ask, maybe Mr. Leck wanted to tell us something.
Expound on it a little more.
Okay, the enrollment study, we worked with RSP and Associates a couple of years ago to do an enrollment study. It was part of our strategic plan. And the question might be, why are we choosing to go through that route again? And I think that's a great question. The answer is very simply, there's been changes in the economy of North Dakota, and changes in the economy of Jamestown. And one of the things that happened right around the time this report was done was changes out in Spiritwood. And we want to make sure that having an enrollment study has a level of confidence in our community to say, we feel very good about what these numbers say. And because of what's happening in the economy in Jamestown, nationally, statewide, and some of the changes that have happened with Spiritwood, I think it's appropriate to bring RSP back, look at those conditions that have changed, and then make recommendation, or provide us with that enrollment study so we can make recommendations to change that are the most recent. And I know in a typical situation, this might not be something we would do 3 years after. I think given the changing conditions, if you want to have confidence in what those enrollment projections are, you need to do it again. Some of it's just timing.
Diane? Oh, sorry about that, Diane.
Yeah, when I read this in the report, I did have concerns. I mean, it's a $12,000 charge, and the report is only 15 months old. And what has happened, as I understand it, between then and now is that the fertilizer plant pulled out. And the projection of that report, I remember all of us, I think I was anyway, a little bit surprised that basically the report said in 5 years you'll have about 700 more students join your district. Yeah, 700. About, right. And I remember thinking that we had paid a lot of money to find out not very much information. And I had concerns when I saw this that we're going to do it again with not very much really changing in Jamestown except the removal of the fertilizer plant. And I just have concerns. I'd like to see some more justification for why we would put another $12K into that.
Rob, any more or any other comments?
But again, I think it comes down to the changing conditions. And the report, when it was provided to the board, you have to remember there was 9 months of work done prior to that. So when Rob Schwartz was here, that was the fall previous to that. And so a lot has changed in Jamestown between the time when Rob was here doing research, crunching numbers, and the time the board was presented. And that's not typical in a situation, but the conditions did change in Jamestown. And one of the things we heard pretty consistently when we were going through and doing referendum, the different presentations, is yes, you had those enrollment studies done, but that was before CHS. I heard that at every instance. And like I said, some of it's timing. But if you bring forward any recommendations based on this enrollment study, people have to have confidence in what that tells you. Best case scenario, that tells us the exact same thing. But we have to, people have to have confidence in what those numbers say. And I don't have confidence in what they say because the conditions have changed.
Mindy?
Yeah, I think it's a wise investment. I think a lot is the climate in Jamestown has changed dramatically since they did the research. And even in the state, as we know, out west, things have changed and people are migrating and maybe they're moving to Jamestown. I don't know. But I think it's necessary to make that investment. And I also, we still have our facility challenges and we need to probably move forward on that sometime soon. And we need to have some pretty substantial data to back it up, some credible data. So I'm
Jennifer?
for it.
The school board isn't the only ones who used a lot of projection of a population change. I mean, there was housing department that was doing it. There was, to make sure that we had affordable housing and enough housing. So a lot of people did a lot of studies about 15 months ago based on things, and it has changed. Everybody's having to redo them so that we know that we're confident going forward. So I agree with you that it's unfortunate that it was only 15 months ago that we spent that money, and now we have to spend it again. That's really not awesome. Sorry, I don't know how else to say it. But the point is that everyone's in the same shoe, everyone's in the same boat, because it really did change. The environment really did change, and those numbers that they gave us, because I've read the report that they gave us, they're not valid.
Bob?
I'd also like to point out if you looked in the Jamestown Sun, I can't remember which day last week it was in there, but there are 3 companies that are going to a state organization called APOC. It's out of the Department of Commerce, and they're all looking at locating out at Spiritwood. Well, one hasn't made a decision yet. The soybean hasn't made a decision yet. There's Spiritwood. I hope everybody in Jamestown understands what a great investment that we have in Spiritwood out there. And I think there's going to be, I really feel like there's going to be some things happening in the next few months that are going to be very positive for our community. And if it's not in the next few months, maybe it's going to take a year or whatever, but that's going to fill in out there. And I think we have to have the best, if we're going to take something to the community, again, for facilities, we have to have the best information, and I think we have to remain positive about what's going to happen here in town. And the only way you can do that is to have someone come in and help you, or the best way, I think, is to have someone come in and help you.
Diane?
Well, I still feel like I'll eat my hat if there's much difference in the results that we get this time. But like you say, that could be a good thing, that we have the numbers verified. But one thing I wanted to ask was, this will dovetail into the facilities assessment and what we're going to do with our facilities. Will it also give us some idea of what we're going to do if we do have a referendum and we do see something substantial shift with Washington and Louis L'Amour? Will this help us in any way with boundaries and how we would handle that?
A boundary study would be a different study, but our demographer could do the boundary study also. The good news about working with RSP and Associates again would be 2 things. The first, they're very reputable across the state. Many districts experiencing growth or decline have been using RSP, and they're very their track record has been very good. The second thing is Rob already has a lot of context, and the turnaround in this report will be a lot faster than it was previously because of those contacts. He's familiar with Jamestown. He's familiar with the infrastructure that's in place for Jamestown, familiar with the community in general. So the turnaround on this report is going to be very quick, where he can start to do some stuff in fall, and we can turn around and get that report back by October or November. And that's the time frame that we need. And I think it will be as recent of data as anybody could possibly expect from a demography study.
Any other discussion? Steve?
We might find, like Diane says, that the numbers are going to be the same because we have other things coming in, but I too experienced a lot of question after CHS pulled out, and even if we do find the numbers are the same, I don't think anybody believes that first report anymore. They're not going to take those numbers.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Sally, you want to call roll call?
Roger Hout,
Yes.
Robert Toso.
Yes.
Diane Hansen.
Yes.
Greg Allen.
Yes.
Heidi Larson. Jennifer Schmidt.
Yes.
Brenda Remick. Oh, gone. Steve Veldkamp. And Mindy Schmitz.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Is there a motion to approve the support staff wage schedule? Motion by Greg, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Bob, you want to mention some?
Yeah, Pastor Terry and I met with Rob just prior to the meeting, and that's a committee that works with this type of proposal. And what Rob is bringing to us, if you look at the support staff salary schedule that you have in your agenda, and you look at lane 5, that's the addition, is adding a high school assistant kitchen manager. And the reason for that is to work with the current manager at the high school in the kitchen for looking at a potential of a retirement, a change, and training that person to move up then the next year. So in all likelihood, this is a 1 or 2 year situation, but we need to have it in the salary schedule in the meantime.
I was just going to add to that the assistant, this new position, the high school assistant kitchen manager, would also serve the role as head cook. That's one of the things that we're looking for now. So if you look in lane 4, that's where the head cook is at. This position, high school assistant kitchen manager, would be in lane 5. Serve that role of head cook, also transition into that high school manager, that full high school kitchen manager position. So if that clarifies things too.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 6, we're going to skip over the resource officer. We don't have that agreement yet. That'll be coming next meeting. So moving to letter B, is there a motion to approve the release of contract for the 2016-17 and acceptance of resignation of Mitch Osley as IT marketing teacher at the Career and Technology Center? Motion by Jennifer. Seconded by Heidi. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter C, is there a motion to approve hire Sadie Leck as a special education strategist at the high school with MS plus 15, step 13, salary of $67,547.50 for the 2016-17 school year. Motion by Mindy, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Greg? Any other discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to policy and procedures, is there a motion to approve the second reading of the technology acceptable use policy for staff and students ACDA? Motion by Greg, seconded by Mindy. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There a motion to approve the second reading of the staff dress code policy DEAC. Motion by Mindy, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Is this a part of a bigger document? It's just one sheet here, but
Rob, you want?
It's part of a greater policy book, but the policy is just what you see in terms of that. We have gone through and review policies on a regular basis, and we're part of the policy services through the School Boards Association also. So,
any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to rescind policy E6. Motion by Mindy, seconded by Bob.
What was the
Discussion?
reason for that again?
if we put it, I did mention that in my report, when we passed policy FGA, you've made policy E6 redundant, because that policy exists within FGA. Yeah. Well, if you look, even if you look at the codes of our policies, our the E-1, E-2, those are our oldest school district policies. As we've created better policies that are more comprehensive, some of those policies become redundant. And as we looked through the policy book, looking at our different policies and where we're going next, that struck out as being one that we could rescind because it's redundant.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the transportation, the support staff, teachers, elementary secretary, activities handbook for coaches and directors for the 2016-17 school year? Motion by Jennifer. Seconded by Diane. Any discussion?
there's no date on the pages. Or on any of the pages. In the title, it says the year, but there's no date on the actual document. Is that normal procedures?
Yeah, it wouldn't be unusual just to have the date on the cover page.
I would recommend that we make sure dates are on all of these for when they got approved.
Well, you're saying the date for approval, or are you saying the dates on every page?
Either just so that they know that they're current, so that if a teacher or someone in the public has saved this, if they happen to find one on the website, they know whether they have the most current edition or if they do not have the most current edition.
Easy fix.
That's a good idea, Jennifer, because if they're downloading or printing, they might not know that that's the current one and stuff. So that's a good idea. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the tuition agreement for Jamestown 5th grade student and a 6th grade student to attend Montpelier Public School for the 16-17 school year? We just did that. All of those together?
Handbooks, that was included.
Yeah, we did all the handbooks together. Motion by Mindy.
Tell me
Need a
again.
second.
Oh, yeah, I need a
Seconded by Bob. Discussion.
Tell me again the timing for when we have to agree to the tuition agreement and when we don't, and when it's a no-cost agreement. You know what I'm saying?
The open enrollment session?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me. Thank you.
Well, a tuition agreement would be a temporary year-to-year agreement that's put in place. Open enrollment is a change in residence, at least school district residents. So open enrollment has a deadline in the winter, and it's February. Anything after that would have to be a tuition agreement. And that's why we'll do a tuition agreement and request that they complete open enrollment, which is their right to do. Instead of doing tuition agreements every year.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There a motion to approve a tuition agreement for an 8th grade Pingree Buchanan student to attend Jamestown Public School for the 2016-17 school year. Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Mindy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Items for future agenda. Hearing none, if you do have something, just let myself or Rob know and we'll get it onto the agenda. Meetings to be scheduled here. We have our next school board meeting is August 15th, 5:15 here in the Thompson Room. We have the staff breakfast is Monday, August 22nd at 7:30 at the high school commons, and I would invite all board members to come up and help serve. I mean, we serve teachers coming back for not professional development, but and we help serve the breakfast to them that day. So I welcome all the board members to come up and enjoy that. And then before we adjourn, Amy's got the technology use agreement. We all need to sign one of those, so we want to do that before we leave. And then also, if you want to right-click on your adjournment to assess the meeting, we'll do that. Meeting's adjourned.